Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gamer.biz and our weekly news roundup. Today is Friday, the 19th of January. I'm your host, Jenny Jordan, and with me is Editor-in-Chief and co-host, John Jordan. Hi, John. How's it going?
Good. Yes.
Good.
Lots of snow outside.
It is, yes, in UK. Lots of snow and ice.
It's snow everywhere, isn't there? The US got lots of snow.
Sweden.
Lots of snow.
Yes. So let's run through the headlines this week. So the most sort of prominent news was that Yuga has announced a kind of comeback of their Dookey Dash that was released was it January or February in 2023.
January.
Now this version, new game's called Dookey Dash Unclogged and it's a free to play compared to the previous one. Anyway, we'll talk more about that later. We have gone through on the big blockchain game list and done sort of a big update, which we talked a bit about last week about discontinued games. This week we published which blockchains had added the most new games in 2023, and we found that in net growth, WEMIX and Arbitrum, Ton and Immutable ended in top, but still sort of seen overall, Polygon was the one adding most games. Now also it kind of weaves into the discontinued because they also had a lot of discontinued games, and just yesterday we had a recent sort of prominent chain migration of one of the prominent games on Polygon, Crypto Unicorns, which announced a migration to the Arbitrum Layer 3 blockchain, Psi. I think that's how you say it anyway. Is it? Psi? In other news, Klaytn and Finschia have announced a blockchain merge. Talking a bit more about that. And we have looked into the growing trend of Play-to-Airdrop. So talk a little bit about what's the future for that and how is it sort of an evolution of the kind of play-to-earn model, which we have seen in blockchain gaming previously. Right. Do you want to kick us off, John, with Yuga Labs and the exciting announcement of Dookey Dash Unclogged?
Yes. Yeah, I think it is actually pretty exciting. Sort of one of those things that I'd sort of forgotten a little bit about the original, even though I did play it. So the original game, and this was all sort of linked into like a mini game, a browser-based mini game that you played, and that was sort of to feed into their game Legends of the Mara, which has sort of been a bit of a damp squib at this point. But anyway, it was the whole point with Yuga of sort of giving their NFT holders sort of something to do. So you had to, if you were a Yuga Labs NFT holder, Apes and Mutants and Kennel Clubs, I think, maybe some other ones, I don't know. You got a ticket to play Dookey Dash, and you played Dookey Dash, and the ticket was actually technically quite interesting. It was an NFT, and it recorded your score. And then the person with the high score got this magical golden key that I think in the end sold for $1.6 million or something crazy. Anyway, and those keys were then used to create other assets. The game itself was sort of interesting. It was like for people who know the game Tempest, it was sort of like an endless runner, but you're going through a pipe. In this case, it was a sewer. There was a whole backstory about all that sort of stuff. As a browser game, I found it very difficult to play, I'll be totally honest, with a sort of mouse and a keyboard, which is how I played it. And so from a game, obviously the game was the sort of the cipher to get you into this other NFT sort of trading sort of situation. But I think what they've realised is the game was actually, quite interesting in and of itself, even though it's a very sort of simple endless runner game. You go through this pipe and you're avoiding things, and then you're picking up items, and you basically, at some point you crash. So they're basically bringing that back. This time it's going to be a download game. So we're assuming through the app stores for mobile and PC Mac version as well. I imagine the touchscreen on the phones will be the easiest way to play it. But because it's coming down as an app, there's sort of it'll be a better game experience. And there's also a whole bunch of other stuff built into it. So there's a battle pass. So battle passes are things that reward you for more activity. I don't know if there'll be a paid battle pass, but there's a battle pass that you can get more items. NFT holders will get sort of some more items as well. Not quite sure how the NFT how the wallet integration will happen on that, to be honest. So a few unanswered questions. But sort of the point of it is this is the first time like a Yuga product has been available for free to play for anyone without any NFTs. And I guess one of the ideas is that will engage, a lot more people. They'll be playing this game instead of the best gamers who hold NFTs. It'll be hopefully the best gamers who just want to play the game. And there'll be competitions and prizes. There'll be NFTs. There'll be ApeCoin. So in some ways it's just a sort of a big marketing thing. In other ways, probably some 13-year-old kid somewhere in the world is going to win the high score this time and maybe get a big NFT prize or something. So
now another new thing.
Quite interesting from that. Yeah. So it's quite interesting from that point of view. And they're going to have in-app purchases in there as well. So there's a bunch of stuff that we're not sort of quite sure about. But it's and I think it plays into the narrative of 2024, which is blockchain gaming is quite is a coming sort of thing now, and people are expecting something to go mass market, and probably a free to play mobile game is probably the you can't get more mass market than that, assuming people want to download it.
More significantly, perhaps, it's that it's released in collaboration with, it's developed in collaboration with Faraway, who has some features, UGC features, where you can customize your avatars and other sort of game items. Excuse me. Why do you think that comes quite timely, doesn't it? Start of 2024, UGC is just growing sort of thing. But they have had, so Faraway has been working on these kind of the UGC tools for years, and they've also released them in with sort of other games with their own Mineral Nations and other games. So what's the significant thing in sort of doing that now, do you think?
Yeah, I have to say I'm not entirely sure. This is not a game that I think, obviously you can have UGC in anything, but this is not a sort of game where you think UGC is sort of a core element. Like you can't have the sandbox without UGC really. But this is a bit more added on. But I think my gut feeling is this is something that they are testing out now out in this game, because UGC is going to be more important for other stuff that Yuga is doing. So Faraway announced it was doing stuff with Yuga a couple of months ago. And as you say, Faraway has sort of been building out this creator platform where you can build skins for characters, and there's a storefront. So if I create skins, I can sell them on the storefront. They have a nice thing where anyone can create storefronts. So if I was a big influencer, I wouldn't have to create anything myself. I could just have a storefront and you go, John's storefront. And if people came to that, and I was just selling other people's creations, I would get 40% of that, I think. There's also a 5% referral fee. So they sort of had the idea of this sort of store that anyone can get involved with. So I think that'll be more interesting in the long run. But obviously they're sort of testing it out with this game just to sort of see how that works. Yeah.
So in other news, we, like I said, we're the ones who edit and run the big blockchain game list, and we looked this week at which blockchains, in fact, in 2023 added the most new games. And like I said, WEMIX and Arbitrum ended up sort of with the highest net growth, but WEMIX, Polygon, and Ethereum were actually the blockchains that had the most new games added to them in 2023. Can you explain the data a bit more in detail there, John?
Yeah, it does get a bit complicated, doesn't it? So, so we basically sort of what we were looking at here was how many new games we had added to the big list in 2023. So that's just in a way sort of fairly straightforward. A game is announced and it says we're going on this blockchain. And so that sort of data is pretty clear. I mean, some games are going on multiple blockchains.
When you say it like that, it's not always very clear and very straightforward, because some games say this, it turns out they're on a completely different chain. Some are multi-chain and they're all over the place, and some haven't even deployed despite saying that. I mean, it's really quite difficult actually to settle the kind of data to settle it. And Sorry, that was a interruption.
Well, there's sort of, I mean, we have buckets we have some buckets that are more clear than others. So if I announce a new game and say I'm going on Solana, then obviously that's a +1 to Solana. If I have a game that says I'm going on Solana and Cosmos, pretty unlikely, but I would then go in the multi-chain sort of bucket. If I announced the game and didn't say what and said I'm going to make my decision about what chain I'm going to go on later, I'd go in unknown. And so we sort of have these buckets, and like all data, that there is some uncertainty around exact data, but over a whole year you get quite good data about sort of what chains are gaining the most. And I guess pretty much every chain that we looked at, every sort of sizable chain there were new games announced for every chain during 2023. However, what we also looked at was from the start of 2023 to the end of 2023, my game that I announced was going on Solana. Maybe I announced it's not going on Solana anymore, and I'm going to go to Polygon. In which case, I would be a +1 for Solana when I announced it. But then when I changed during the year and said I'm going on Solana, I'd be a -1 for Solana and a +1 for Polygon. So you sort of have that. You have who's announced, and then you have the sort of, the data around the announcements, and then later on you may have some sort of qualifying data. So you sort of have this thing of sort of net. You sort of have the idea of the games that were announced, and then you have this sort of net games. And the other thing around that is some games are just discontinued. So I might have been saying I'm going to do a game on Solana, I run out of money, I just say I'm not doing this game anymore. So that in that point, I'm discontinued and I'm a -1 for Solana. So even though all chains added games, some chains lost more games than they added. So Wax was one of those, BNB was one of those, Solana was one of those. So those were chains that, although they did add new projects in 2023, they lost more, so they were sort of negative over the year because more ones were being discontinued or they were migrating. So that's sort of where the complexity lies. And I guess the headline stuff was that Solana obviously had a bad year in end of 2022, and 2023 was awful for Solana. So there's no surprise there that it lost sort of traction. BNB was at one point the biggest blockchain. It's lost a bit of traction as well, so no surprise there that there are a lot of games on BNB, a lot of them discontinued, so it's gone net negative. And I guess one of the big trends of 2023 was these L2s like Solana, like Optimism, and a lot of gaming chains like WEMIX and Finschia and all these other often from Asian developers, publishers, who are sort of building their own blockchain, but it's sort of more like a gaming platform as well. So sort of a lot of moving parts, but headline, as you say, WeMix, which is WeMade's blockchain out of South Korea. They've always said they wanted to have 100 games last year announced. I don't think they managed quite 100 games, but obviously they added, over 50 onto our list. And Arbitrum is just a growing sort of blockchain infrastructure for Ethereum. Lots of not just games, lots of projects are moving to Arbitrum. I think we sort of the headlines we captured were sort of within the sort of trends that we saw in the wider market.
And obviously, if you look at something like Ronin, which at the start of 2023 hadn't announced any of their third-party developers joining the ecosystem, and where they end in 2023 over that year.
Yep.
I mean, how much their ecosystem has grown, and also in sort of seen in numbers of games joining their network. That there's been a big growth. So that's that. Let's move on to the Klaytn and Finschia merge. So Klaytn, as far as I understand, is sort of the blockchain arm of the bigger kind of Kakao, and Finschia is the blockchain arm of Line Next, of Line actually, and Line Next is the blockchain arm. Clear this up for us, John, please. Sorry,
yes.
It wasn't helpful.
No, okay, so yes, you're right. So bizarrely, both of them are sort of South Korean companies. So Kakao is sort of equivalent to I don't know, like a Facebook Messenger. It's actually a bit more complex than that. It's actually a sort of in Asia they tend to have these what they call sort of super apps or everything apps. So in China the big one is sort of WeChat, which is different to our sort of WeChat. And they're basically apps where you have everything. You have social media, you have news, you have payments, you have banking, you have blah, 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 all that sort of stuff in there. So Kakao is a really big one in South Korea and other parts of Southeast Asia. And that's always had quite a strong gaming focus. And then Line, despite being a South Korean company, was really big in Japan. So that was sort of the equivalent. So Line and Kakao are still really big mobile social media platforms that, everyday people would use to organise their lives and social sort of activity, and also have gaming and also have entertainment in there as well. So they both moved to added blockchain. So the Klaytn blockchain from Kakao has been around for I think 2018, 2019, 2020. It's been around for quite a while. And obviously, I'm not the target audience, not being a sort of teenage South Korean, but they didn't really seem to make much impact in gaming. I don't know whether they sort of wanted to do gaming from the start, or it seemed a little bit weird because Kakao was so big into gaming and Klaytn, stuff was announced for it, but it didn't seem to be like a massive priority. And that's not really changed. You can sort of, it's there. It's it's a top 100 crypto in terms of market cap, but it's not like a blockchain people are massively talking about. Like you could argue, something like Telegram and the Ton network, sort of something people are really, wow, this thing's really kicking off on gaming and wallets and all that sort of stuff. Kakao's never really had that. And then Finschia was originally called Line Next, similar sort of approach from Line to let's do some blockchain stuff. And they Line Next is actually based in the US. I'm not quite sure why. And then they called it Line Next. Then they changed the name to Finschia, which is just really obviously not great. And that was only sort of, that's been going much less. That's been going a much shorter period of time than Klaytn, and just hasn't gained that much more momentum. They've got this Dookey thing that they raised 140 million for last year, which they've been running as a browser app, and now it's gone live on mobile. But it's quite confusing. They have a bunch of stuff in there. You have entertainment and avatars, and they're going to have some games. Although the game strategy seems a little bit confused. So you have these two sort of giants of Web2 social media and entertainment and stuff, sort of trying to do Web3, not quite working out. And so from that point of view, having sort of merging the two together in some senses, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the issue is it's quite complex to do. You're taking two blockchains. One's Kakao's EVM, so that means it sort of works on Ethereum standards. The Finschia one uses Cosmos, so you have these sort of two separate things that they have to bring together. Technically, that's not impossible, but it's not what you would choose, I guess. Obviously, they have to then, the original tokens will be dead, and everyone will have to get reissued with the new blockchain tokens. You have to do all the blockchain infrastructure and find all the validators and start all that sort of stuff up, go through all the legals. The foundations are going to be emerging together as well. So this is a whole bunch of just like a mess, and all the assets on those chains have to be migrated across as well. So it's a bit of a mess. Obviously, if it sort of works out and they have the biggest sort of social blockchain platform for South Korea and Japan, that's very valuable. But it's, if you sort of failed in your first attempt, I'm not quite sure how bringing more complexity together necessarily helps you find sort of focus and success as a bigger, more diverse company spread across, two different markets and blah, blah, blah. And it's not like in Japan, at least, it's not like, there's Oasis is a big gaming chain. We'll see how that sort of gets on, but at least they're very focused. We're about gaming. They've got loads of games signed up, so you're sort of competing with those sort of local interests as well. And in South Korea, obviously we mentioned WEMIX, and you've got Come to Us with their X-Play, and you've got Netmarble with their Marblex, and probably some other ones as well. So they're sort of, it's sort of a watch this space sort of thing. And the other thing is they've announced a proposal, but the governance, the foundations have to vote on it. So you could imagine they've announced all this thing, and then one of the sides decides doesn't want to do it for some reason. I mean, I guess Kakao's sort of Klaytn's losing the most. It's been going for the longest, and it's in the top 100. So, it's just a bit of a mess, but sort of, well, it would be sort of a bit of a sort of popcorn, eat the popcorn and see what happens.
More to come, for sure. Right, and this week previous week probably, and all of the start of 2024 has been full of projects announcing Play-to-Airdrop campaigns, and I think the last one to do is the Saga blockchain, which is starting their Play-to-Airdrop tournaments on the 22nd, so in 3 days. Pixels is just about to finish theirs, I think. Today they run a Play-to-Airdrop campaign for 2 weeks. We got Apeiron, and we have Nifty Island, which launched in beta in conjunction with their Play-to-Airdrop, and we have Neon Heroes, the Solana-based game shooter. So what's this all about, John? What's Play-to-Airdrop?
Yeah. So it seems like the term was coined actually by Pixels. So Pixels did what they originally called a Play-to-Airdrop campaign last year for their Berry token. So that's their current utility token. And obviously Pixels is a sort of big hit game of sort of the end of 2023, early 2024. It's the biggest blockchain game in terms of on-chain activity. I actually spoke to the CEO, Luke, yesterday for a future podcast. He was just saying, the reason we do this is because we want to obviously, grow the community. So they've up to 170,000 DAUs. Daily active unique wallets on the back of this airdrop campaign airdrop thing. And he says the thing they like about it is it incentivizes. They can, if you're doing this, you can really the developer shapes the campaign. So it basically sets the rules and works out, who's going to get the token reward. So typically airdrop, Play-to-Airdrop is when people are going to launch a new token. The way that you're giving out token allocations to people is they have to do things in the game, or do things outside the game. You can have some social stuff in there as well. But it just the method is basically the developer has control over what people are doing, and normally it has a point system or a leaderboard system. In this case, of Pixels has a leaderboard system, and so you're ranking against other people for your allocation, and that obviously drives a lot of engagement. And his point of view is, also he doesn't want to give away stuff to bots. So, they make these campaigns actually quite complicated in many cases. There's lots of hoops you have to jump through to get your allocation. So, it's sort of purely a way of driving audience and giving them tokens. Obviously, in that case, you still get people getting the tokens and selling them straight away. So you still have that sort of situation that you get if you give anyone, $100 worth of something, they probably more want the $100 than the something. But at least there's you're sort of better focusing where the stuff's going, and because crypto sentiment is much better at the moment, everyone's looking about launching tokens, and the Play-to-Airdrop thing is now everyone's sort of quite getting used to. This is how we do it. So every game now is going to have a similar sort of Play-to-Airdrop. And the nice thing about it as well is it sort of gets around securities problems, because you're not selling anything. You're basically people having to play the game, and that's how they're getting the token. I mean, they've not called it this, but Big Time has been doing this for the last year as well. So you basically people have to play the game to get the Big Time token. So it's not, the concept isn't new. I guess the packaging around Play-to-Airdrop is sort of the thing that's catching the headlines. But it's now a tool in the marketing chest, and more projects than not will probably be using it, I would think, because it sort of works. I guess the big thing is how long will it sustain audiences? Obviously, you get a big boost when you announce these campaigns, but are people just going to go, right, I'm going to focus for the next 2 weeks on playing this game, getting the biggest allocation I can, and then just sell it off and go on to the next one? So is it going to actually be a competitive advantage for any games? I guess you would argue that the best quality games are you're sort of forcing people to play a game a lot, and then they're going to go, love this game, going to keep the tokens. But that's not going to happen for all games. So
and then you went through.
I guess we'll see. Like a lot of these things. Yeah.
No, you mentioned quite a lot of the advantages there, but I mean, I had to say, like, airdrops in general might have quite negative connotations to a lot of people, and give the industry quite a sort of why it's suffering a bit from these sort of bad negative perceptions. So what are the kind of more the dangers of this sort of, what would you say, kind of hype, because you do create quite a lot of hype around your project with airdrop campaigns like these, almost like that over promising and under delivering sort of thing. Obviously the advantage is that you have to engage with the game to be eligible to the token airdrops. You can't just sort of hold an NFT or do a transaction and then suddenly you get But are there any larger kind of dangers to the industry, you might say, with this sort of approach?
I don't think dangers. I mean, I think it definitely is an improvement on the old airdrop model, where basically retrospective airdrops are fine. It's basically no one. I mean, the Uniswap one was the best one. No one really, there'd been airdrops then, but that was the big one where basically they said everyone who's used Uniswap in the past is going to get an airdrop of tokens, and that was like a one-off. There was no gaming of the system, because it was all about it was all retrospective. It was all about your past behavior. But then, of course, as soon as they did that, everyone else is like, "Who's the next airdrop?" So everyone's like, for DEXs, everyone's going in and just doing wash trading to sort of increase their chances of getting a big airdrop if there's an airdrop next time. From that point of view, I think Play-to-Airdrop is obviously much better because of this control kind of mechanic. I think that, like most things, it's an advantage for the first people to do it. So I think Pixels have done super well out of it. And maybe some other people in the next few months will do well out of it. I think in the long term, the sort of the ability to move the needle in terms of audience will decline, and because people will just sort of expect it, and so it won't be exciting in the same way that it sort of currently is. And obviously we're in a bit of a hype cycle at the moment, so sort of everything's doubly exciting because of that. But yeah, I mean, it's just a more sophisticated marketing tool than we have, and we'll move on to something else. It's sort of funny though. We moved from play to earn, and then we had free to own, and there's all these just people seem to love these phrases, and really, I guess play to airdrop has been the one that's stuck since play to earn. So
yeah, good. Right, on that note, I think we should finish off for this week. And thank you very much for listening or watching. And we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Right.